Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this is going to be a very short hangout. Uh, the other day I was watching a video that another YouTuber posted. They actually posted footage of an interview that took place on Reid's show. Activist Mark Thompson was talking about the ADOS movement and also Pan-Africanism and reparations. So for those of you who have not seen that particular interview with Mark Thompson, I'll post a link in a description box so that you could check it out for yourself. I would play the actual video, but I don't want to deal with going back and forth with YouTube over copyright issues. So for those of you who haven't seen that interview, I encourage you to check it out. The link will be in the description box. And basically, Mark Thompson destroys this ADOS movement in under 2 minutes. So I encourage you all to check that out. And I know that Yvette Carnell did some long hangout where she responded to it. I haven't had a chance to watch her hangout. Maybe I'll get around to it, maybe not. But I think that Mark Thompson put it in succinct terms, like what the problem is with this ADOS movement. You know, he basically aired them out. And it's hard for people to refute what the brother had to say. So instead of me like paraphrasing what the brother had to say, I encourage you all to check it out. If you've already seen it and you have comments about it, please feel free to provide those comments either in the chat right now or in the comment section later. But I think the brother exposed this movement for what it is. It's a sham, it's a fraud. And I won't go any further. I just encourage you all to check out the video, the interview that's in the description box so that you can judge it for yourself. Because the brother lays out basically what the whole thing is all about. And, you know, I just raised a question that I've raised before. Like, if this movement was so serious about reparations, why aren't they pushing HR 40 right now in Congress? Why aren't they lobbying behind HR 40 right now in Congress? If they're really that serious about reparations, that would be their priority. They will be focusing on people that actually have power to make HR 40 become law, instead of going after potential candidates, instead of focusing solely on Democratic candidates for president. They should be focusing on lobbying Congress and pushing this issue before Congress. Shout out to Timothy. Timothy wants to know what's my Facebook page. You can find my page at New Possibilities. So if you do a search on Facebook for New Possibilities, you'll find my page. And actually, I'm going to share my page right now. Well, actually, I'll just if you go to if you go to Facebook and you search for New Possibilities, you should be able to find my page. It shouldn't be any problem finding my page. If not, just let me know and I'll provide a link. I would show my Facebook, but I don't want to show my personal information. I did that before by mistake, but I don't want to show my personal information. So that's the only reason why I'm not showing the Facebook page right now. But yeah, if you go to New Possibility, if you go to Facebook and you search for New Possibilities, you should be able to find my Facebook page. And I will post this video of Mark Thompson's interview on my Facebook page so that you all could check it out. Shout out to Elaine Lloyd. Good morning to you. Good morning to David Bowman. Jomo, good morning to you. Yeah, so somebody said that HR 40 is a proposal just to study reparations. It's not about actually issuing reparations. HR 40 needs some work. This is what Yomo says. And in response to that, I'll say this, man. First of all, the whole question of reparations does require a study. So I think that before someone can even seriously approach the issue of reparations and solve and actually make it manifest, make it an actual reality, I think that there does need to be a study. That's just a matter of common sense. We need to have an extensive study of what is the most effective way to pay out reparations. What's the best way to address the disparities that exist as a result of hundreds of years of slavery, and decades of Jim Crow. There needs to be a study. There needs to be a study of all the companies that actually profited off of our enslavement and track the actual families that were enslaved by various companies and by the federal government. All those things need to be investigated. So anybody that's serious about reparations understand the need for a study. It's not some simple matter of somebody just cutting some checks. You know, see, here in social media, we've been dumbed down. You know, we've been reduced to hashtags and catchphrases and slogans. Like you got all these ADOS people running up to politicians saying, cut the check, without doing any kind of critical thinking or critical analysis. Cutting some checks is not going to address reparations completely. In fact, you know, if you just cut some checks, within 24 hours, that money will be back in the hands of the same people that enslaved you. So I think that there is a need for a study. And anybody that's serious about reparations understand that. And Cobra understands that. A real organization that's been fighting for reparations for years, they understand that. And, you know, if we are serious, then we should be asking senators, why aren't they supporting this HR 40? Instead of getting in people's face saying, cut the check, just ask them, why aren't they supporting HR 40? That's not requiring anybody to cut a check right now. It's just a simple study. Every single politician should be able to tell us their position on HR 40. And we should not just be running up in the faces of Democrats that are running for president. We need to be in the faces of all politicians, regardless of their party. We need to be in the face of the senators and the representatives, the people that actually have the power to make this law, if we're serious about reparations. But that's what makes me question the whole seriousness behind that movement, because they're not pushing for that. In fact, I saw little clips of Yvette Carnell and them basically being critical of HR 40. And that tells me that these people aren't for real, man. Anytime you got actual legislation before the Congress, and actually on ADOS's agenda, from what I understand, they actually have HR 40 as a part of their agenda, but why aren't they pushing it if they're really about that life? Why aren't they like actually having all those ADOS people that tune into Yvette Carnell's show? Why aren't they having those people call their members of Congress or call their senators to push for HR 40 if they're really serious? You know, that's what makes me question the whole thing. But for those of you who are just tuning in, I encourage you to watch Mark Thompson's interview on Joy Reid's show. And the thing that's very important about Mark Thompson, unlike these YouTube personalities, this man is the real deal. He's a real activist. Not only does he have some radio program, this brother actually has been in the streets putting in the work for Black people. You know, actually doing the work, actually engaging in activism, not just talking on YouTube, actually lobbying for things, working with civil rights organizations, actually mobilizing people to vote and to push a real Black agenda. That's what differentiates him from these internet personalities. He's about the work. He's not about entertaining folks. And, you know, I saw Yvette Carnell, like a little bit of her clip in her response to this guy, Mark Thompson. And she was so like the little bit that I saw was real childish and juvenile. Like she went to his YouTube page and counted how many subscribers he had to suggest that somehow he's irrelevant. But to me, that's a distraction, it's a deflection, and it doesn't even reflect like the amount of following that the brother has. Because if you go on his Twitter account, for instance, he has well over 100,000 people that support him. If you tune into his radio program, you'll see that he has plenty of supporters. See, unlike Yvette Carnell, his whole focus is not on doing all these daily YouTube videos. Like if somebody is constantly on YouTube, constantly putting out content, they're going to get a following, especially if that person came into YouTube by riding the coattails of somebody that was already popular. Like Yvette Carnell, the main reason why most of us know about her is because of, what's the brother's name? You know, that guy, Boyce Watkins. If it wasn't for Boyce Watkins, most of us wouldn't even know who Yvette Carnell is. And that's true for, unfortunately, for quite a few of these people here on YouTube, man. A lot of them came through Boyce Watkins. So for her to like try to downplay Mark Thompson by looking to his YouTube page, I think that's silly and juvenile, and it's really irrelevant to the points that he raised. And I'm not going to go into the points because, again, I encourage you all to watch the video for yourself. But yeah, I had to address this whole thing about HR 40 just being a proposal to study. Yes, I mean, study is important if we're serious about reparations, if we're serious about trying to rectify and repair the damage that was done because of slavery and because of Jim Crow. Shout out to Gab Talk Media. Thanks for tuning in. Also, Timothy said he's from Baltimore too. Yeah, man, for my Baltimore people, again, I want to encourage you all to come out. I'm going to have an art show and sale on June 5th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Montego Bar and Grill. And that's located at 1818 North Charles Street. So come check it out. I encourage you all. And actually what I'll do is I'll put a link to the invite. I'll put a link to the invite in the chat room so that people that are interested can just link it, click the link and indicate whether they're going or whether they're interested. So let me just do that real quick. Just bear with me a second. So I'll post that in the chat room for people that may be interested in going. Yeah, so you could just click that link. If you're on Facebook, just indicate if you're interested or you're going. I would appreciate it. We often talk about supporting Black business, and that's a chance to support your brother. In addition to doing, commentary and stuff like that, I also am an artist. Like I paint and I draw. For those of you who haven't seen my work, I encourage you to look me up on Instagram at the Asaka Gallery. So it's all lowercase letters. It's the and then underscore Asaka, ASAKA underscore gallery. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram and see my work. But anyway, thanks for your comment, Yomo, about HR 40. I think that's a worthwhile discussion. Yeah, the study should have been done years ago, Davies. Yeah, it should have been done years ago. It should have been the law should have been passed years ago. And I think that should be our focus, man. We need to start in steps. And the first thing that we can do is mobilize to pass HR 40. That's what all of us need to do. Call your senator, call your member of Congress and ask what is their position on reparations. What is their position on HR 40? And, I may do a live video. Like if I ever, it's hard because I work for the most part, like during the week. So it's hard for me to do any live streams except for doing my lunch break. But I want to do an actual call to my member of Congress and record it so that you all can see it and just see how you approach members of Congress. Those members of Congress are your representatives. They're supposed to represent you. And you have every right to call them. Just call them up. Their phone numbers are publicly available. You can call your member of Congress and ask them what is their position on HR 40. Call your member of the Senate, your two senators, and ask them what is their position on HR 40. Push for them to support HR 40. Because it's a shame that all these years have passed and that law hasn't been passed. And Sheila Jackson Lee brought it before Congress again this year. And if we're serious, we need to support her. We need to support that effort. Doing all these YouTube videos is not going to get reparations passed in Congress. Dividing up Black people, between immigrants and African Americans, it's not going to help us get any HR 40 passed. It's not going to help us get that law passed. Talking about how we don't have any allies, it's not going to help us get anything passed. Because in order to pass that law, you have to have allies in your corner to support it. Yeah, there is a lot of pseudo intellectualism here on YouTube, man. Yeah, study. I mean, the study is key, man. People just don't understand like how massive this reparations issue is, and we do need to have an extensive study. So Yomo said we need to form an independent think tank to study, and that reminds me, like this whole reparations question. We obviously need a study because even these people that are pushing this ADOS movement, they can't even tell you exactly what reparations would look like. I've heard like all these video clips of Yvette Carnell basically saying, well, she's not going to tell members of Congress or the government what reparations should be and all this and that. She wants to first see if they even support the idea of reparations before she can go into the details. Like she said, she just mentioned vague ideas of reparations should look like. There needs to be an extensive study. And that study shouldn't just be conducted by Black people in isolation. That needs to be a government study because it's the government ultimately that will pass the laws that will end up making reparations become a reality. So yes, there needs to be a study. Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Randall Robinson, his book, The Debt, I'm familiar with that. Of course, people have written about this before. We do know that we were enslaved and stuff like that, but it's not that simple. It's more complex than that. It's far more complex in terms of studying, like how much would, for instance, what does reparations look like? How much should people be paid? Because when you look at this reparations question, it's really profound. It's really a deep issue because we're talking about making people whole that were enslaved. When you think about like slavery and you ponder whether or not there's any price that can really be paid to compensate our ancestors for all the suffering that we endured, that they endured to make us whole as people, like what does that actually look like? And I think that in order to come to that understanding of what reparations looks like, there needs to be an extensive study. There needs to be a study of what needs to be done to make the African American whole again, to repair all that damage that was done, all that damage that was done from all those hundreds of years of slavery, damage that was done from Jim Crow. There needs to be an extensive study. You need to study like all the companies that benefited from slavery, all those banks, all those insurance companies, all those institutions of higher learning that benefited from slavery, the federal government itself that benefited from slavery. All of these things need to be studied. Shout out to Elaine Lloyd. So Elaine Lloyd said, I think you're right on ADOS, and I admire how you keep on when even your oldest subs are upset by honorable principles. Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of these people that are just all about popularity, saying what everybody is going along with, jumping on bandwagons, saying what is comfortable and what's easy. I'm not that kind of person. I speak from the heart. I tell people how I really feel about issues, even if people disagree with me. Even if it means that, some of my subs will disagree. And you even had some people say they're unsubscribing. Even in the face of that, I tell the truth, because my slogan is I speak truth to power without fear. So surely I speak the truth to my subscribers, even if it's uncomfortable, even if they don't like it. Just like I speak the truth to this government, to, a Donald Trump, and to, racist police officers. I'm not one to compromise my principles for popularity, because it would have been easy for me to get on here like a lot of these YouTubers did and just ride the bandwagon, to throw up an American flag and put ADOS behind my name. That would have been the popular thing to do. That would have been the convenient thing to do. But I'm not about being popular or about being convenient. I'm about the truth as I see it. And, you got this, people like a Tariq Nasheed riding this bandwagon. These people went from red, black, and green to red, white, and blue because it was popular. And I just think that that's disgusting, man. And yeah, for those people that are just tuning in, again, I'm reminding people that there's a link in the description box to Mark Thompson's interview on Joy Reid's show, and I encourage you all to check it out. And the only reason why I'm not playing it right now here on YouTube is because I don't want to deal with copyright issues. And, like when you look at this movement, you got to ask yourself, are these people really about reparations, man? As I said in my prior video, exposing the links between Yvette Carnell and these white supremacists, my question is like, why does this anti-immigrant stuff have to creep into this reparations movement? That reparations movement has absolutely nothing to do with this anti-immigrant stuff. And when you go back to that video that I did exposing these links and stuff between Yvette Carnell and and these white supremacists, you will understand why this anti-immigrant nonsense has creeped into this reparations movement. And I encourage you all to check that video out. When I get a chance, I'll post a link in the cards so that people can check it out. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to eventually, hopefully when I get time, I'm going to go through the ADOS agenda, and I'm going to compare it to those groups that I indicated have ties to Yvette Carnell, these white supremacist groups, this white supremacist John Tanton. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to compare their anti-immigrant agenda to the anti-immigrant agenda of these very white supremacist groups that Yvette Carnell has ties to. Yeah, it's just crazy, man. And it's not a coincidence. Again, this anti-immigrant stuff is not a coincidence. And unfortunately, like so many people have just sipped the Kool-Aid, and people that were all about Black solidarity now are on YouTube going against their own African brothers and sisters, going against their own brothers and sisters from the Caribbean and stuff like that. And I don't think that that's productive. I think it's counterproductive. I think it's counter-revolutionary. And I think it just plays into the hands of our enemy. The same people that go ham on these Democrats are the same people giving Republicans a pass, the same people that heap praise on Donald Trump. Actually, heap praise on this man, this racist billionaire that doesn't give a damn about Black people. They got praise for this guy. You even had one of these illiterate fools talking about Donald Trump was the only one with a Black agenda. I mean, all that nonsense, man. But anyway, let me continue on through your comments. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I'm not going to make this long at all. So so BB said, where's this pessimism coming from with you? I'm not pessimistic at all. Like I don't know why you're saying I'm pessimistic. I'm interested in hearing why you would say that. I'm not pessimistic about reparations. I think that we can obtain reparations. As hard as it is for some people to believe, I think that we can if we lobby and push for it. If we push for HR 40, I know that can become a law. So I'm not at all pessimistic at all. I'm not pessimistic about people. In order to believe in Pan-Africanism, to believe that Africans worldwide can unite, that's not pessimism, that's optimism. And that's something that, you know, Yvette Carnell and her movement lack. They are pessimistic about the prospect of African people uniting, but yet they're optimistic about the white man that's enslaved them for all these years, paying out some checks, cutting some checks. How does that work? So I'm not I'm not pessimistic at all. And I don't understand why people would think that I am pessimistic. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, Elaine. Yeah, I did do a video about how DACA affects Black immigrants and stuff. You know, I've done videos in support of immigration that before, like before this whole issue came up. And I've also done videos critical of some Black immigrants that do not appreciate the Black struggle and the Black experience. Um, so a lot of people just don't. A lot of people just don't understand, man. So EDEC said, I stand in total solidarity with Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell because they have galvanized so many people behind the ADOS movement. But to what ends, though? I mean, what are they actually making these people do? Like, are these people they're not pushing for HR 40. All they're doing is starting to, I mean, it's great that they have started a conversation about reparations, you know, regardless of how I feel about ADOS. But let's not act like this is something new. I mean, there have been plenty of examples of people sparking the conversation about reparations. You had Ta-Nehisi Coates when he wrote that brilliant article, The Case for Reparations. He sparked a conversation about reparations. You had Randall Robinson do a book, The Debt, that sparked a conversation. So there's nothing new about what ADOS is doing. People have been lobbying for reparations for a long time. And it is good that they have sparked a conversation, but to what ends? And, you know, the video that I keep referencing just exposes like their real intent. Like it basically lays it out. And I've alluded to it before. I've talked about it outright, but it's good for you to all to see somebody else talk about it. Now, somebody said ADOS and Tangibles 2020 merchandise is being sold by a white Australian company. And and they said those dummies, Yvette and Tone, never copyrighted the term. Laughing out loud. Yeah, man, because it's like now everybody is running with the term. Like, and I even see people on here selling mugs, you know, selling merchandise using ADOS, just pimping it, straight pimping that terminology, man. Straight pimping, man. They know it's hot, so they're going to run with it. They're going to ride it until the wheels fall off, man. They're going to profit off of that stuff until they squeeze every dime out of it. And that's not what no real revolution looks like. That's not what no progressive movement looks like. Yeah, I could go into a whole video about DACA, but I'm not going to do that right now. You know, this anti-immigrant thing doesn't help Black people at all. Immigration is not the cause for our problems in America. I mean, and that's one of the biggest problems I have with ADOS, man. They scapegoat immigrants and they don't concentrate on the real enemy. Instead, they want to have Black people fighting each other over reparations. And the way they're fighting over it is they're acting as if the man is about to cut some checks right now, and they're fighting over the scraps. Just like how you see hyenas and stuff like that tearing up, you know, fighting and scrambling for scraps in the jungle. That's how these people in this ADOS movement are acting, man. Like animals in terms of their viciousness towards immigrants. And I'm frankly disgusted by that. So let me just keep on going through your comments. And then people keep raising, hold on one second. Yeah, and then people keep raising this point. They keep asking me, what is my lineage? My, asking whether or not I'm ADOS, like whether or not I'm an African American or a so-called American descendants of slaves, as if that makes any kind of difference at all in terms of the actual points that I'm making. And I'm going to say it for the 100th time. I'm a descendant of enslaved Africans in America. So yes, I'm, a quote unquote ADOS person, even though like I reject that terminology. If you're asking whether or not I'm a descendant of people who were enslaved in America, yes, I am. My family has the paperwork. We know the names of our enslaved ancestors and stuff like that. So miss me with the deflection, with the distraction, and all that kind of stuff. Let's deal with the actual issues. So yes, my parents, my parents are from America. They're not immigrants. My grandparents are from America. They're not immigrants. My great grandparents are from America. They're not immigrants. So let's not, try to distract by bringing that up. Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest mistake that Yvette Carnell could have ever made, like rejecting Pan. That was one of the things that really cut her off from a lot of people in the black radical movement, on the black left and stuff like that. Her disrespectful comments about Pan-Africanism. And for those of you who don't know, I did a whole video responding to that Pan-Africanism video. Like I did a whole PowerPoint, laying down my case for Pan-Africanism. That alienated her from a lot of people, saying that we had no connection to Africa and all that kind of stuff. Man, just ridiculousness. I mean, silliness. And I don't understand how any black militant can take somebody like that seriously, man. Um, this woman worked in Congress. So, I mean, she knows what the lobbying process is like. I mean, so why isn't she really pushing for HR 40? Like, why isn't she, instead of doing those 2-hour long hangouts, which I don't have time to watch, I can't sit down and watch nobody that long. I'm sorry. I have to set aside time to say, okay, I'm going to watch this Pan-Africanism video, but I'm not sitting down watching nobody for no 2 hours. Instead of doing those 2-hour long live streams, why isn't she like organizing an effort to have people call their members of Congress and push this HR 40 through, instead of like just selectively cherry picking Democratic presidential candidates to harangue and harass about cutting some checks, knowing good and damn well ain't nobody gonna cut any checks anytime soon. Nobody said she's a white supremacist, Andre. I said that she is connected to white supremacists. The organization that she sits on the board of, Progressives for Immigration Reforms, is a front organization that's connected and affiliated with white supremacist John Tanton. For those of you who haven't seen the information that I provided, I'll post a link in the card so that you can check that out. So Dave, he said that Coates is trash. I mean, what's the basis for your opinion? I mean, the brother is a recognized writer who's written all kinds of great books about the African-American experience. Like, how in the hell are you talking about he's trash? When he started this conversation about reparations before Yvette Carnell, when he wrote that brilliant article called The Case for Reparations, you can't really be serious about reparations and make such a statement as that. Have you even read anything written by Coates? Have you read his article entitled The Case for Reparations? Have you read any of his books? Have you read anything that he's written? Read an essay? I doubt it, because if you did, you wouldn't make such a ridiculous statement. It's one thing to disagree with somebody. It's quite another thing to write them off as trash when they're a respected writer. People have compared the brother to James Baldwin. So obviously you haven't read his stuff to make such a statement. That's the only explanation that I have. You heard Yvette Carnell say something and you ran with it. I don't get it. Like, I don't get how somebody can make such a statement. And I'm telling, I mean, Yomo said hopefully ADOS won't fizzle out like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, like, it hasn't fizzled out. You know, it's still known and all that kind of stuff. Um, but I do believe that ADOS is going to fizzle out. You know, it's going to be dead by the time this presidential election is over with. You're not going to be hearing all this stuff. It's just something hot right now. It's just some hot hashtag for right now, man. Yeah, I'm not going to, I could do a whole video responding to this thing about civil rights doesn't benefit us. I mean, that is just such a ridiculous statement. I mean, it's just so absurd, man, for somebody to say that civil rights doesn't benefit us. I mean, such a statement is just beyond ridiculous. And I'm not going to waste my time going into it because, I mean, all I'll say is this: you are not living in the same situation that your grandparents were living under. You know, a situation where you had no coloreds allowed signs up, where you had to sit in the back of the bus, where you had to drink from the colored fountain, where you couldn't even go to certain colleges and universities, where you couldn't even legally vote in parts of the country, where you faced being lynched on a daily basis, where you had to walk on the other side of the street when white people were coming down the street, where you couldn't even look a white man in the eye without fearing getting lynched and stuff like that, where we didn't have any elected officials. This is not the same time period. And for somebody to say that we haven't benefited from civil rights, I mean, it's just on its face false. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about DACA. I already made some comments about that. I could go on and on about that. So this guy Timothy said, you got to be a foreigner because you disagree with ADOS. No, you don't. I mean, Mark Thompson, the man that I keep mentioning in this video, he's not a foreigner. He's not an immigrant. You don't have to be a foreigner to disagree with that ridiculous anti-immigrant movement, ADOS. And I would go into it in more detail, but I just encourage you to watch that 2-minute video that just lays it out. It makes it so plain that, you know, a fool could understand. Yeah, I don't watch I don't watch, well, let's see, I don't watch Jason Black. Like, it's been a long time since I watched his stuff and been subscribed to his stuff, man. You know, and you know, it has nothing to do with this whole ADOS issue. Like, I stopped watching him years ago when I saw him trash this African American woman who was a victim of domestic violence. I just couldn't take him seriously as a YouTube commentator after that. Yeah, and Mr. Black Culture is right. A lot of people are just so ignorant; they don't even know what Pan Africanism is. Like, I was having this debate with this thug with the gold teeth. He didn't even know, like, the people that I was mentioning, this guy didn't even know who they were. Like, all these great Pan-Africanists, but yet he wants to have a discussion about Pan-Africanism. Man, these people are steeped in ignorance. Most of these people that are on this ADOS bandwagon, they haven't read anything by Kwame Nkrumah. They haven't read anything by Soko Toure. They haven't read anything by Thomas Sankara. They haven't read Malcolm. They haven't read Malcolm's speeches and stuff. They haven't read Kwame Ture or heard any of his speeches. A lot of these people don't even know anything about the civil rights movement or the civil rights struggle. That's the only way you could explain them saying that black people didn't benefit from civil rights because of the Immigration Act. That's the only reason why they would say such ignorant things like that. Joel says the anti-Africa identity rhetoric is a red flag for COINTEL pro-black identity extremist agenda, just like ADOS. It's all to get Trump reelected by way of further degrading Democrats. I couldn't have said that better myself, man. Yeah, I'm not saying that Yvette Carnell disrespected Coates. Like, I haven't heard her commentary on him. I'm talking about these people, this, person in the chat room that said all this stuff about Coates. And people keep saying Yvette Carnell and them are galvanizing our people. What are they galvanizing the people to do other than to undermine Democratic presidential candidates? What are they doing besides that? Running up in people's faces talking about cut the check, cut the check. That's so ignorant and juvenile, man. Ain't nobody gonna just cut you some checks. And any politician telling you they're gonna cut you a check is a damn liar, man. They sound like Oprah. When Oprah was like, and you get a car, and you get a car. That's how these politicians sound. It's going to any of them to tell you they're gonna cut you a check right away. Yeah, and then Tariq Nasheed. I mean, Tariq Nasheed, man, I think he's a joke, man. I mean, he's a funny guy. He's very entertaining and all that kind of stuff. But I can't take him seriously when it comes to political matters. I can't. A guy that had an actual don't vote campaign, as somebody mentioned here. That's so idiotic, man. Telling people not to vote. When you tell people not to vote, you're telling people that you're basically supporting black voter suppression. That's what you're doing. When black people don't vote, our agenda becomes irrelevant. Nobody cares about people that don't vote. Shout out to Bonafide 1970. Politicians, when they are campaigning, they don't go to communities that don't vote. They focus their campaign on those people that actually vote. That's what these fools like Tariq Nasheed don't understand, man. Telling black people not to vote. And then because black people don't vote, you end up with people like a Donald Trump in the White House. You end up allowing your enemy to decide who's going to make the policies that affect your life. That's essentially what people are doing when they say don't vote. They are turning over the reins of government to their enemies. And then these same people end up complaining about who's a white supremacist, and their white supremacist policies and this and that. These people can't be taken seriously, man. These people are a joke. Anybody telling you not to vote is a agent, whether consciously or not, to the Trump campaign, the Trump, the Trump people and the GOP. That's all they are. Yeah, I mean, it is good. Well, somebody said that ADOS has brought more to the conversation and shaken the political scene more than Mark Thompson ever has. That's not true. You don't know. I mean, some of these people, the only time they heard of Mark Thompson, some of these people that are just so uninformed, is when they heard Yvette Carnell mention him. But anybody that, for instance, who's been in the DC area, who's been on the scene of activism, knows just about how much this brother has done in the struggle. They know about how much he has contributed. So, Yeah, so shout out to everybody in the chat room. Again, shout out to Bonafide 1970. Yeah, shout out to everybody, man. Yeah, and then I mean, somebody mentioned the Supreme Court. I mean, the president has so much power to determine who's going to be on that court. Like the court is already tilted to the right because Donald Trump made these appointments. And if he's given 4 more years, the court is going to be so far to the right that our civil rights are going to be reversed, man. A lot of the gains that we've taken for granted are going to be reversed. And it's not just the Supreme Court. You have the Court of Appeal, the district courts of appeals, you have the district courts. So all of this stuff has an impact on our rights. But yet you have these people running around here saying that black people shouldn't vote and all this and that. You know, pushing this one issue of cutting some checks over all these other issues that are relevant to our lives. Yeah, and I've seen these clips. You know, another YouTuber posted these clips of Tariq Nasheed talking about how he prefers Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton because Donald Trump is more upfront with his racism and this and that. Yeah, so yeah, and shout out to lovely Mimi. You know, lovely meme. I think, yeah, lovely meme. Shout out to you for your donation. Lovely says, thank you, MP, for being one of the few voices of reason during this age of misinformation. Thank you for your support. I truly appreciate it. You know, your financial support means the world to me, and your moral support as well. The people that tune in to these live streams and let me know what they're thinking. But yeah, I want you all to check out that video. Tell me what you think about what Mark Thompson had to say. I'm really interested in hearing from you. And I'm really interested in hearing also from those people that watched Yvette Carnell's response to Mark Thompson. I want to hear what you all have to say. I haven't watched her full response yet. I've just seen a couple of clips of her response. So I can't really speak on what she had to say yet. But I know that the little bit that I saw was not impressive at all. So with that, you know, again, I want to thank Lovely for your donation to this channel. I truly appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings. But before I go, I just want to remind the people that are in the Baltimore area, I encourage you all to come out to my art show and sale. It's going to be June 5th of this year from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's going to be at the Montego Bar and Grill at 1818 North Charles Street here in Baltimore, Maryland. And I posted a link in the chat room so that people can, you know, click on that link. You go to that link and you can just indicate whether or not you want to go to the event. I'm going to post it again real quick as well so that it'll be right up front. So you can just click that link, let me know if you're interested or if you're, you know, or if you're going, that would be great. So with that, I'm going to say peace to each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in. And again, thanks to Lovely for your donation. Peace.